Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, we are going to be talking about 9 tips for indoor witches. So a lot of pagans and witches and whatnots will mention to always go outside, go outside, go outside, which is great. Don't get me wrong. There is definitely a lot of evidence that going outside into nature can be very beneficial whether you're pagan or not. However, if you live in a city or maybe you're under 18 and you can't go out to the mountains, whatever your situation is, maybe you have mobility issues, you have depression, or you have anxiety and going outside of your comfort zone is just not feasible right now, or maybe you live in an area where it's going to be quite a bit of a drive to get to a place, whatever, you just want to do some witchcraft in your house. Here are some tips that I have for you that will hopefully help to spice up your life at home. So tip number 1 is to make the mundane magical. So this can include your cleaning routine, add a little bit of magic as you go while you're physically cleaning an area, also energetically cleaning the area, whether that is infusing your cleaning products with the intentions or going through with some kind of clearing items such as a sacred smoke, or if you're living in an apartment where smoke of any kind is not allowed, use a singing bowl or a bell or whatever works for you. Some people even use like music and different things to kind of clear out a space, but as you're doing things, make it magical. Even as simple as making a meal, it doesn't have to be every single ingredient. You can focus on an overall meal. On my TikTok, I talked about how I used green beans as the color of green for healing the physical body, and that was as easy as it was. It was just a simple putting an intention, putting a focus, and so looking into more like kitchen magic, stuff like that. Again, making the mundane a little more magical. So this next tip is especially for those who might be in apartments or condos where you are renting the place and you are not allowed candles or smoke. Kind of mentioned that earlier, but these are just a few things that you can use in substitution for your incense and candles and things. So for one, you can always sprinkle some herbs or salts around, and then it's something that you can easily sweep up or vacuum up depending on what your flooring situation is as part of a protection ritual, or if you're casting a circle or anything. It's a pretty easy way to clean it up, and most people aren't gonna have an issue with a little bit of salt on the ground. Instead of using actual candles, you can use electric. So this is a salt lamp. I have quite a few of these, but you can use any kind of artificial lighting. The gods are not going to be offended if you use modern technology. If you don't feel like using electricity, you could also swap out candles for crystals and, you know, use your intention, focus, verbiage, whatever you want to call it, to activate the crystals in your ritual. So have a crystal for each element if you're casting a circle, specific ones for the deities to call upon them, maybe touch them to activate it, even put like an essential oil or something to activate it, or sacred water of sorts, whatever, to activate the crystal. Just be careful if you are using a liquid on a crystal that it is a crystal that can handle that. And if you are using crystals, just make sure they're not out in the sun, because some of them, especially like amethyst and citrine, will lose their color if they're in the sun. Another thing along this line, if you are allowed to, some apartments do and some don't, is to also use like the wax warmers. You can even buy candles and warm them on those little, they have like things specifically to heat a candle. Or you can just get the little melts and use that as a way to cleanse an area, similar to how you would to leave like a stick of incense. You could even give that little chunk of wax as an offering on your altar. And then, just like any other offering, once the smell is gone, usually it will last a little bit longer because they're designed to, but once it's done, just clean it up like normal and throw it away. One thing that I found when I did live in an apartment, and even still to this day, that is super important in my practice, is to always have an altar of some kind somewhere. Whether that is, I've used my dresser plenty of times, many witches use a dresser, or a bedside table. I'm lucky to have this little alcove in my room, so I have a table that I can have mine set up, but have it so that you can sit. Yes, I do have a Nightmare Before Christmas chair. It's fine. But have a spot where you can sit at your altar, make your space comfortable where you want to go. If you're going to be casting a lot of circles, make sure you have enough space, whether it is, you know, walking around your altar like some traditions call for, or if you want to just have enough space where you can visualize your bubble. Some people get a little hung up on if you have to go through walls. For example, I have a wall like right here. So if that was an issue for me, this little corner may not work as well, but I actually don't do much circle casting at this particular altar. I actually have several spaces that I will do mine, but I have the luxury of a house. When I was at an apartment, I had my altar on a piano, and I had plenty of space in that room because I just had a twin bed at the time, where I could cast a circle starting at the back of my altar, back of the piano, around, and I had a rug in the middle of my room, and I could go around there and have a circle, even if I couldn't walk behind the piano, because obviously I can't move that. I mean, very easily. You know, just go at least up to the corners and then like visualize like the full circle. If you have mobility issues or anything, you don't have to do that by any means. You can just visualize whatever kind of circle if you do that kind of thing. But having some place where you can focus and even just look at occasionally to remind yourself of your practice, what you're working towards, different things. You can have seasonal altars set up, just various little things. For me, that was a huge thing living in an apartment. This was my main focus spot. Now having a house and a yard, I have more areas, but I still love to have my little altar spots. So another thing with city living or apartments or even just housing, if you don't want to go outside, you have bad allergies. Again, this is indoor witchcraft. You can bring in plants. Now, again, depending on where you live, some places may allow houseplants, some may not. You'd be surprised the rules they set up. You can also try growing some plants and things, some herbs in your house if you were allowed to. So you could try growing some peppermint or spearmint, or even try like a tomato plant if you're feeling really special and that you've got a green thumb. However, you don't have to actually try and grow things if you don't want to. You can go and buy fake plants and have them even for seasonal things. Have your altar set up, you know, for the summer with blues and yellows to represent the water and the heat, or Samhain, get some purples and oranges and blacks. You can go to most craft stores, and even the dollar store usually has quite a bit of a selection, at least ours does. And it's only $1. Like literally, actually, did not plan this. But on my dresser, this is from Yule. It's a little dusty, because again, it's from Yule. But this was like maybe $1. Get a few of these, spruce up your house a little bit for the different seasons, just to bring in a little bit of that nature. Even if you can't go outside, sometimes that can just make you feel a little more witchy, since a lot of the aesthetic of being a witch and being pagan is nature. And if you're not able to go outside, again, for all of the reasons, having a little bit of a reminder around your house sometimes can help. Number 5 on this list is to find ways to connect to your practice. So this can be a variety of different things. This could be sitting at your altar and doing tarot and runes and studying and doing all of these things in your house, working on archetypes, whatever floats your fancy in your practice at this time. It can also include going out for walks, going around the neighborhood, focusing on the nature that is out there. Even in the city, you will find nature. There are usually, in every city I've ever gone to, there are trees that are usually planted on city streets. There's usually grass or flowers or something. You've got the breeze, whether or not it's blowing smells from a local restaurant that's making you hungry. Like, you can usually find parks nearby. If you do want to go outside, typically you can find nature. It doesn't have to be these very beautiful places, but are not always accessible to everyone. You can simply just go outside, even on your porch or your patio if you've got that, depending on your living situation, just sitting outside for a few minutes. Some people that is vital to their practice. It doesn't need to be going out to the mountains and to a stream. It can just be sitting on your porch, enjoying a cup of tea with the gods. But it doesn't have to be. Just find a way to connect with your practice with how it works for you, but making it a point, because again, being indoors, sometimes you can go down the rabbit hole of focusing on other things and your practice may get shoved to the side. And so just making a point of focusing on it. So my next tip, kind of going along with the last one, is if you're not feeling connected to your practice, especially being an indoor witch right now, for whatever reason it might be, or you're just wanting some ideas, even if you can go outside. Some tips that I have found is to bring in parts of your practice, especially decor that you're going to find around your house. So for me, I love to have decorations for the Wheel of the Year around my house. So typically I will always have something around. It's Beltane. So naturally, I would probably have some flowers. I'm trying to keep fresh flowers on our main table. I mean, think about Halloween. A lot of us love to go all out for Halloween. You can do that all year round. It doesn't necessarily have to be spooky, scary skeletons all the time. It can be witch imagery, even if it is stereotypical. Get yourself some brooms and hats and cauldrons and remind yourself that you are a witch. And you look around your house and maybe you see a pentacle on the wall, or you have whatever, you have a wall tapestry of the Wheel of the Year or of a triple goddess or whatever, and just different things around your house. Doesn't have to be blatant. You can find very subtle ways, just some shells and a candle or two and a windowsill, carefully, to represent the summer, different things like that. Just little things can sometimes trigger your brain to go, oh yeah, I am a witch. I should do the thing. And it can just help, just little bits here and there. So number 7, I actually have talked about a little bit on my channel, but I feel like why not mention it again? So this is how to discard your offerings. So it really doesn't have to change too much whether you have a house or you're in an apartment or you're in a city or whatever. It doesn't have to be that complicated. For example, let's say you pour an offering that's a liquid in a cup, obviously. Don't just pour it on your floor. That's gonna cause problems. Pour it in a safe cup or whatever and leave it on your altar for, say, 24 hours. After which point, you might want to say some verbiage if you're a little more meh about it. You know, say, okay, you know, the spiritual offering has been given. The rest of this, the leftovers, I'm going to dispose of now and go put it down the sink. Just like you would like a soda you left on the table overnight and it's flat and gross. You're just gonna throw it, you know, dump it down the drain, throw the can away, clean out your cup, whatever. Same thing with your offerings. Incense smoke, you don't need to go and bury it in a, you know, special grove of trees. You can throw it away or vacuum it up. So number 8 on my list is to bring magical items to your altar. By this, I mean, if you do go to a sacred place, let's say you go to a gathering locally, some coven or whatever group is hosting an event, typically they will give you something to bring home. For instance, there was, I think it was an Ostara, it might have been a Beltane ritual, but they gave us all these little tiny crystal, like the Venus of Willendorf, I think, images. They were carved into clear quartz, and everyone got one. I mean, they were only like this big, but still, I put that on my altar. I've also included things when I've gone to places. Now, I will preface this by saying don't take where it is illegal. But if you're at a place where it is allowed for you to take items, don't go to like a national park or something and steal, because that is definitely illegal. But I have like property that's several hours away with my family that if I'm having a magical experience, I will take a rock or a twig or something and then bring it to my altar. I have a rock that I specifically got when I climbed this really, really big cliff rock thing because I refused to be shown up by, like, I think she was 12 at the time. And yeah, I decided to bring a rock home because I kind of conquered my fear of heights for the time being. It was mainly my meds taking away my brain's ability to acknowledge risks, which is not good. But I did it, and it reminds me of a specific point in my life. And so for a long time, it lived on my altar. So you could do different things like that. For a while, I did have some items that I had charged at a sacred site, so you can even bring things in that you specifically want to charge. For example, I had gone to Zion's National Park here in Utah, and so I took a few items to charge and bring home with me that then lived on the altar. So even if you don't get out very often, I mean, I don't go to the national parks terribly often. It costs a lot of money to go and get rooming and all of that, and it's a to-do. And usually I want it to be a special event, so I don't do it very often. But when I do, then I could have it on my altar for a while. So my last tip for indoor witchcraft is to work with the archetype of the deities that you're working with. So these are very, very basic. You can get way more into this the more you work with deities and you develop your own relationship and connection. However, these are just to give you some ideas. So make the mundane magical, like where we started. Your workout, now it's a connection to Thor. you're working on your strength, both mentally and physically, because it does work out both. So you've got that. You can do a bath bomb. If you're working with a love goddess like Aphrodite, you could do some research into witchcraft and things, reading books with Hecate or Odin. You can also do like shadow work with the Morrigan or the goddess Hel. And there's a variety of options, but that's just one final way. It doesn't even have to be with deities either. Just start working on archetypes. You could start working with your inner child, your inner teenager. There's a whole host of options. That is going to be it for my 9 tips for indoor witchcraft. I hope this gave you guys some ideas. I tried to keep it pretty universal, whether you are living in an apartment or you just don't want to go outside. It's fine. Do what works for you. I hope this gave you some ideas. I'm sure I've missed a bunch of other options. This was just a short list that I thought of that I just wanted to share with you guys, because sometimes it can be a little daunting that everyone is telling you to go outside, go into the nature, go into the woods, to the ocean, whatever, and you don't have that option. So I hope this helps a little bit. If you have any video suggestions or anything you would like me to discuss here on the channel, please leave it in the comments down below. If you have or currently are an indoor witch, I would love to hear some other tips that maybe I have forgotten in the comments down below or in a video response linked below. And until next time, thank you for watching, and I will see you all soon.